here just next to the Bridge of the Americas, one of these critically important ports of entry through which so much of what we depend on in the Texas economy and in the national economy flows. In El Paso, 1 out of 4 jobs depend on U.S.-Mexico trade that was stalled for the last week by Governor Greg Abbott. And I want to talk about what he did and who it benefited and who it harmed. As you all know, for the last week, Greg Abbott ordered 100% inspections on all commercial traffic coming through the ports of entry from Mexico into Texas. And I want to be really clear, this is in addition to all of the customs and border protection inspections to guard against human smuggling and illegal drug trafficking and any other concerns that we have here. These were completely unnecessary inspections that also did not allow the inspectors that Greg Abbott put on these bridges to even look inside of the cargo hold. So there was no ability to detect illegal drug trafficking or human smuggling, even if it was taking place on these ports of entry. Just want to make sure everyone gets this was completely unnecessary and did absolutely nothing to improve the security and safety of El Paso, of Laredo, of FAR, of any one of our border communities, of the state of Texas, or of the United States of America. So as we try to answer the question as to why Greg Abbott would do this, if there was no security benefit, if it slowed down and in some places stopped cross-border trade, we need to look at who benefited. Greg Abbott politically got his 5 minutes on Fox News, trying to look tough on border communities like ours. But here's what the people of Texas got. We got rising inflation because as fewer of these goods could get across our ports of entry, prices are starting to go up. We got supply chain problems, which means it's harder for us to get what we're looking for in the grocery store or at Best Buy or on the factory floor at the Toyota plant in San Antonio, for example. Inflation and supply chain problems that we already had in Texas, that we already had across the country, made much worse here by our governor. We also got a hit to our local border economy. We are trying to compete for investment and for jobs and for business against the rest of the world and other border communities, including those, say, in Nogales, Arizona, and other ports of entry in other states. What Greg Abbott did made us less competitive here in the state of Texas and less competitive in El Paso. You can ask any of the brokers here in our community or on either side of the border, and they will tell you the same. We also saw a devastating hit to the Texas economy. Ray Perryman of the Perryman Group estimates that this cost the Texas economy $470 million every single day that this went on. It cost the national economy $996 million a day, every single day that this went on. Almost $1 billion to our GDP to the negative every single day that this went on. You're also going to have a hard time finding the produce that you want in the grocery stores starting as soon as this weekend. I just got off the phone with the president of the Texas Produce Association, who told me try finding avocados and limes and other things that we depend on that we import from Mexico through these ports of entry, thanks to Greg Abbott. 2/3 of all the produce that we consume in the state of Texas is imported through our ports of entry. Greg Abbott has hurt the people of Texas. He has especially hurt the people of the border, and Greg Abbott is causing higher inflation in the state of Texas. It's not unlike the higher inflation that he's causing on our utility bills after the power grid failure that he caused last year. Each of us in El Paso and every other community in Texas is paying at least $45 more per month on our utility bills. That's inflation caused by Greg Abbott. Since he's been governor, all of us who pay property taxes in the state of Texas, and that is all of us, cumulatively have paid $20 billion more. That's inflation. This is the inflation governor. But here's the other thing that he's doing. He's not making our border communities or our state any safer or any more secure. Folks, he is causing chaos on the border. When you look at his activation of 10,000 members of the National Guard that he took away from their families, from their communities, from their kids, and from their jobs, and sent them to the border, where they are unable to do really anything to address any security issues, it cost us, the taxpayers of Texas, $3 billion. So far, 4 members of the National Guard have taken their own lives. 2 more have died in accidental deaths. Nothing has benefited the people of Texas or the border. That's just more chaos. When Greg Abbott talks about invasions, and when he uses rhetoric asking Texans to take matters into their own hands and defend themselves, you have someone driving from Allen, Texas in 2019 to El Paso with an AK-47 and opening fire on the people in that Walmart on August 3rd of 2019 and killing 23 people in the process. That is death, that is murder, that is chaos, that is Greg Abbott. And by trying to shut down our border economies over the last week, bringing commercial traffic to almost a complete standstill, harming these local businesses in El Paso and across the border and the Texas economy to the tune of $470 million a day. That is chaos, and that is Greg Abbott. Last thing that I want to say, and then I'm happy to take your questions. As you all know, I'm from El Paso, born and raised here, as was my dad, as was my mom. My wife Amy and I are raising our 3 kids here in this community. It is time that we stand up for ourselves. This is a beautiful, amazing, extraordinary community. We do not deserve these political stunts. We don't deserve this abuse. We don't deserve these attacks from Greg Abbott. We deserve so much better. We deserve a governor who's not looking for the next political stunt, like shutting down this bridge traffic, or claiming that he struck an agreement with the governor of Chihuahua. And when reporters yesterday asked her, when will this agreement be implemented? She said, we've been doing this for the last month. This fake news that he's trafficking to the people of Texas, we are not buying it. And we are never going to forget what he has done to us. And we will remember that we can do much better. I will tell you, as governor, coming from the city of El Paso, I'm gonna make sure that we deliver not stunts, but solutions to communities like these. We're gonna invest in more trade, facilitate more legitimate and legal traffic of people, of trade, of business that creates jobs and economic opportunity in this state. We will represent the border with pride as the safe, beautiful, strong part of Texas that it is. And I want to make sure that every voter across the state of Texas remembers what has happened this week, remembers these attacks that Greg Abbott has leveled against us, and then votes their values in November so that we win, get Texas and the border on the right track. With that, very happy to answer your questions. And Chris, I don't know if you've got anyone that you want to recognize first.
Yeah, we've got the El Paso Times here, so we're going to start with them.
I'm back here.
Yep.
Is this the event that we've seen the last couple of days with truck drivers waiting up more than 10 hours to get through? Do you feel that this was manufactured to create a problem?
This was a manufactured stunt. This was a problem that Greg Abbott created to score political points. I mean, predictably, he was on Fox News crowing about this security agreement that he'd achieved. When Governor Campos of Chihuahua was asked about this agreement and when it would be implemented, she said it's already been in place. So we literally got nothing, literally nothing, except higher inflation, economic damage to the state of Texas. Our border communities are now less competitive for attracting business, investment, and talent, and we create more chaos. Greg Abbott is creating more chaos on the border as a result. He is harming the border. He's harming the people of Texas.
Got K Fox here too.
because these DPS troopers who are posted at our ports of entry can check the pressure in the tires on the 18-wheeler. They can do an engine inspection, but they are prohibited from looking inside the cargo hold to determine if there are illegal drugs or human beings who are there along with whatever else is being crossed. So this provided no additional security or safety benefit to the people of Texas. It only added more chaos to our communities and to the border. It only caused more inflation, more job losses, and made our communities less competitive for businesses that are going to go to other parts of the world when they find out how hard it is to do business here in the state of Texas.
We've got ABC.
Yeah, Mr. O'Rourke, you mentioned that with the disruptions at the border here, it's causing inflation here in Texas. You did mention specifically we would see hard to find produce like limes, avocados. Are there other examples you can provide that you can tie directly to inflation, rising prices to products because of what we saw at the border?
Yes. So talking to brokers and truck drivers and border business owners, it's not just the produce, it's the Toyota factory in San Antonio, for example. It relies on parts that are supposed to come in from Mexico. But when those parts are delayed by a week, it makes it harder for them to complete assembly of those Toyota trucks. It delays those trucks getting to the dealership. It means that when you go out to try to buy a truck here at one of our Toyota dealers, it may not be on the lot. So it exacerbates the supply chain problem. It causes inflation because now there are fewer trucks. Each one of them is going to be more expensive. Here at the ports of entry in El Paso, we're importing consumer electronics like phones, like televisions, like the inputs for factories here in Texas, in Ohio, and Michigan. It is going to exacerbate supply chain problems and inflation and real cost to Americans across the economy. And already it's costing Americans $1 billion a day in negative GDP impact. So this is really hurting us. And again, we got nothing to the positive. No security gains, no safety gains, no economic benefit. This is all damage. The only person who benefited was Greg Abbott.
We have KTSM here. We'll come back.
Do you think it's inhumane to have those truckers wait 10+ hours since they have no access to bathrooms or basic necessities?
Think about the other people that this hurt. These farmers who have labored all season to grow these crops that are now rotting at the far Reynosa port of entry. Think about the truck drivers who've been stranded on these bridges for 4, 5, 10, 12 hours, sometimes for days, running out of gas, running out of diesel to power their refrigerated units, unable to use a bathroom, unable to get water or to get food, who are paid by the load. And typically they can cross 3 or 4 loads a day. They're lucky right now to be able to cross one. Some are crossing one load every 2 or 3 days. Good luck trying to hire a truck driver going forward. Again, further exacerbating supply chain issues, inflation problems, higher prices for Texas consumers, and making border communities like ours less competitive going forward.
Molly at El Paso Matters.
I'm curious how you're going to work to get voters to the polls 6 months from now because of this issue.
This is something that we will continue to feel in the Texas economy going forward. I guarantee you, every single border business owner will tell you that the damage done will not just be felt this week, but will be felt for months and perhaps years. I mentioned that 1/4 of all El Pasoans are employed in businesses connected to cross-border trade. When cross-border trade suffers, so do those businesses, so do their employees. And I'm going to do everything in my power to remind the people in these border communities of what Greg Abbott has done to them for the next 7 months of this campaign, as I will to every Texas voter, because this extends throughout our economy. $470 billion damage every single day that this has gone on, and the ripple effects of this will be felt for weeks and months to come.
And as a follow-up, I'm curious what voters you think that you'll be able to bring into your campaign because of this.
Tell you, there is no party affiliation stronger than the interests we have as Texans, as residents of these border communities, as employees and owners of these businesses that have been affected. Greg Abbott has attacked us, those of us who live on the border. He continues to attack us, to demean us, to vilify us, to try to make the rest of Texas scared of us. And now he's hitting every single one of us in our pocketbook and making it harder to make ends meet, to put food on the table, to keep our businesses going. So that's something that not only Democrats are going to respond to, but independents, Republicans, and also in these communities that have such low rates of voter turnout, non-voters are now going to have a very compelling reason to turn out and vote in this next election.
But I guess kind of beyond these border communities, do you see bringing in voters from the rest of the state? I mean, because you've always gotten people to vote, so beyond that, this is going to help the campaign.
Voters across the state of Texas are going to see that Greg Abbott is only interested in political stunts. So instead of focusing on legitimate security issues at the border or facilitating more cross-border trade that grows jobs or connecting the plains in Lubbock, Texas to the ports right here in El Paso, he is creating chaos, bottlenecks, supply chain problems. That affects that cotton grower out in the panhandle just as much as it does the broker here in El Paso, Texas. I'm going to make sure that we connect the dots in this campaign and that everyone understands Greg Abbott is to blame for inflation, higher prices, supply chain problems, and chaos on the U.S.-Mexico border.
Got Alfredo.
Hey, Beto, has your position on Title 42 evolved? I mean, you supported the Biden administration,
Title 42 is bad policy. I have felt that since the Trump administration enacted it. I still feel it today. Title 42 forces Border Patrol agents to immediately return any person who is attempting to cross into the United States. What those Border Patrol agents tell me is that means they're going to see that same person tomorrow, the next day, every single day going forward until Title 42 is ended. We have seen rising numbers of encounters on the U.S.-Mexico border. I would argue that Title 42 has a lot to do with that. The same person is trying to cross again and again and again. If we end Title 42, we can apprehend those who are attempting to cross into the United States. We can detain them. We can process asylum claims. If someone has a legitimate one, they're able to stay here in the United States. If they do not, they're going to be returned to their country of origin. That's the law, and I want to make sure that we follow the law in this country. My concern with how the Biden administration is attempting to end this is they have failed to communicate with border communities what they're going to do to address the change in policy and to make sure that border communities are not left footing the bill. And so talking to the mayor of Del Rio, for example, or county judges and sheriffs along the border, they've had very little communication from the Biden administration. We're looking for a sped up asylum processing system. We're looking for more detention capacity in the short term to be able to effectively and quickly process these asylum claims. We're looking for the administration to listen to border leaders who understand this issue better than anybody else. But we must end Title 42. We must do that responsibly. And the Biden administration must step up by meeting these border communities and working with them to make sure that we do that.
We've got Univision and Telemundo here if there's a question in Spanish.
Okay, that sounds good.
I do have a follow-up question on Title 42. If elected, what would be your plan, of what the state could do to handle the anticipated increase in crossings that border communities like El Paso are going to see?
It begins by partnering with border communities. The needs in Del Rio, a town much smaller than El Paso, are different than ours. You don't have an Annunciation house in Del Rio, so capacity literally to house migrants does not exist. And where we have the kinds of Catholic charities and other nonprofits who are so helpful to the processing of asylum seekers and refugees in Del Rio, so many of them are literally on the streets attempting to walk from Del Rio to San Antonio. So is there more that the state could do in terms of capacity or assisting these border communities to make sure that they're not bearing the brunt of bad policies or our broken immigration system? As governor, I'll also make sure that we bring leadership from our border communities. It does not matter to me, Republican or Democrat, to propose a immigration bill that reflects our values and our interests. I'll support state legislators, Republicans and Democrats, who are trying to craft a Texas-based guest worker program so that we can address some of these needs that we have here. But I will always traffic in the truth. I will speak with pride about our communities of immigrants that make us stronger and safer. I will counter this incredibly malicious rhetoric that we hear from people like Donald Trump and Greg Abbott. And I will make sure that we make the most of everything that the border can contribute to the success of this state.
With that example of Del Rio, what would be an example of a state agency that you might bring down?
So first of all, we're going to make sure that the federal government does their job. This is a federal issue, and we need to work cooperatively, apply pressure where we need to, but we have to get results and not stunts. If there's an investment that the state government can make in capacity to make sure that we don't have asylum seekers wandering the streets, if there's something that we can better do in partnering with CBP, with the federal government to direct asylum seekers to ports of entry, that's where we want them to cross and present their claims. Let's do that. But on this question of Title 42, if you are an asylum seeker and you're rejected when you come here to this port of entry, we're providing a perverse incentive to you to try to cross in between ports of entry. That hurts a community like Del Rio that does not have the capacity. We should be following our own laws and doing this the right way. And that means ending Title 42, following our asylum laws, but then stepping it up with more capacity to hear those asylum claims. Right now, I think the average asylum claim takes 5 years to be processed. We should be trying to get down to 5 weeks to process that claim. That is better for all concerned. And look, when we fix our problems around asylum, around immigration, around people who want to unite with family or work jobs here in the state of Texas, we can then focus on real threats and dangers that do exist, like human trafficking and drug smuggling here at the border. But right now, the chaos that Abbott has caused makes us less safe and less able to target the very real threats that we face here in Texas.
We've got a question back here at KTSM.
Yes, and I'll come back to Alfredo. It's a great question. So, as we know, the governor has sent a surge of DPS troopers to border communities. What that means day to day is that you are far more likely to be written a traffic ticket by a state trooper if you live on the border. In the Rio Grande Valley, for example, we have seen traffic citations from DPS up 1,000% since Operation Lone Star has started. But it has left the rest of Texas a little bit less safe. In fact, we just had the deadliest year for highway fatalities in Texas since 1980, as all of these DPS troopers have been removed from highways in North Texas and East Texas and the Panhandle and West Texas and deployed down to the border. So Greg Abbott is making us less safe. He's creating more chaos. As governor, I'm going to make sure that we deploy resources where they're needed and that we focus on public safety.
Got time for one more.
Any plans for you to meet with Governor Chihuahua, Coahuila, Nuevo León, Tamaulipas?
I look forward to meeting with these governors and working with them now so that we can hit the ground running after we win this election in November, to make sure that our states are working closely together on security and safety issues, but also because I see the border not as a threat but as an opportunity, working on increasing U.S.-Mexico trade, the competitiveness of our border communities, job and economic growth in the state of Texas. Mexico is our largest trading partner. And for as long as we have a governor who ignores that and in fact makes things worse in terms of trade, we're going to lose out on the very positive economic benefit that we could otherwise enjoy. And one other thing that I want to say about Abbott meeting with these Mexican governors. These governors had no choice. He literally put a gun to their head and effectively tried to shut down their state economies by shutting down our ports of entry, like the one that I'm standing next to here in El Paso. It is partly why when you saw Governor Campos of Chihuahua yesterday in Austin answer the reporter's question, she said, look, everything that Governor Abbott's asked for, we are already doing. Effectively, she said, I just came up here, signed whatever agreement he put in front of me just so we could get trade flowing again. That was such a disrespectful thing to do to someone who should be one of our greatest partners. I'm going to make sure that she and the people of Chihuahua are treated with the respect that they deserve.
So was it blackmail?
This was blackmail, absolutely. Blackmail to these governors in Mexico, blackmail against the businesses along the border here in communities like El Paso, and blackmail against the people of Texas.
Thanks, Beto. That's all.
Okay, thank you all very much for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.